So yeah, so you can see we will probably hit 13,000 during March, and maybe during summer go below 12. This is pretty dramatic decrease, and you can also see up here that we will be, with this collapse rate, we will be at 0, totally out of ice, even in winter, by December 2020. So look at that here. You can now see that 2020 has upped its font, and here you have 21, more likely. 22 is less likely. 23 is the most likely, according to this plot anyway. And here is 24. And if we try to find 25, yeah, then you will see that, okay, the likeliness of 25 appears to be smaller, significantly smaller than 23. So, but the 2020 that we had in the previous plot is also interesting, or scary, whatever you like to call it, because the latest word from Guy is that he actually believes that within the summer of 2020 our species will go extinct. Human beings will cease to be on this planet within 42 months, and that's 2020. So, not good. But I don't know if we should take his word for it. I prefer not to. But if we really go ice-free by 2020, we may have to kiss civilization goodbye, because civilization, in order to function, it has to have stored food, stores of grain that last through the winter, and without storage of food, things will simply fall apart, and producing food will be very difficult in a climate that's gone haywire with storms and cold and heat alternating, deluges of rainfall, rain bombs, droughts. It will be no stability for farmers to grow food, and that's when things start falling apart. So, but we can maybe cling to the hope of 2035. You can see 2035 is as likely as 2022 anyway, by this estimate. So, okay, so we go to the last point at 13.4. The annual volume is here, and the projected 2020 December is down here. So if it continues on that collapse rate, it will go straight down there. But if it keeps doing what it's done up here and go up and down around the trend, it will at least, not go to zero ice that quick, and maybe hang on for a couple more years. So this is a plot of the difference between volume trend lines and extent trend lines, and you can see here that you have a much slower collapse rate, which is linear for extent, and which actually takes 200 years to go to zero. There may be a breaking point here that will change things and go and leave the linear trend, but we don't know yet. And for the volume trend, it's rounded, and it's slated to go to zero before 2035. And because this is kind of an important question, because it zero winter ice implies that civilization collapses, according to many experts. And we have been living in civilizations for the past 10,000 years, since the last ice age. And the reason civilization has kept on going is mostly because of the stable climate, stable temperature, stable sea level, which has allowed us to prosper and, do all the things that, we've been doing that has gotten us to this point where we may be about to sweep ourselves off the planet. So what does the IPCC, the UN Climate Panel, say about this situation? They should be worried about the volume, shouldn't they? Or are they mostly focused on the sea ice extent, which is more lax collapse trend line? So I found this in the latest Climate Panel report, the AR5 that came 3 years ago. They actually mention sea ice extent after talking at length about sea ice extent. They actually mention volume. And what do they say about it, about the volume? They say that the volume has also been declining. The sea ice extent is declining, as you can see here, but even the volume is also declining. I guess I wouldn't use those words. I wouldn't say that this is a graph that is also declining. I would call this a decline, but I wouldn't call this declining. This is more like collapsing. The decline over here is a decline that is slow and that takes 200 years before hitting zero. This is a collapse. It hits zero in the next couple of decades. But okay, the climate panel has at least said that the volume is also declining. I've lately challenged John Compost Cossem to come on this channel with me and have a conversation about activism. Faced with these different scenarios for slow or very fast collapse of the climate and the ice. And I think both John and I have friends that are in the Green Party, and for myself, I'm actually a member of the local Green Party. They're not terribly interested in seeing these graphs, and I've made myself some thoughts about why that may be. I think in order to be an activist or to organize for a higher turnout of green votes or whatever for the next coming elections, you are kind of dependent on having some kind of slow ice melt and slow climate change, so that you can move from maybe having 2% of the vote this year and maybe up to 4% in 5 years, gradually becoming a double-digit political party with 10 or 15% of the votes. Then you would definitely go for this kind of ice collapse. I think the moment you begin to realize that we may lose civilization in 2020, like Guy says, or during the 2020s, like many of these collapse estimates indicate, then it's the charm of being a full-time activist, I think, fades in many ways, and maybe you won't bring those bottles back for recycling, or maybe you will stop composting all your vegetables, or maybe you will stop riding a bicycle. And it's like, if we only have a very short time left with food in the stores, also if you're one of those who like to fight for a just and fair society, or just relations between the North and South, maybe you want to have equal pay for Europeans and Africans and Asians, and have a decent minimum wage and stuff. I'm just saying that maybe that's not your top priority if we have like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years left with food in the store. Maybe that's time to think about other things, maybe just enjoy life. I don't know. So it's kind of a you can't go back thing. I would give quite a lot, I think, to go back to the Green Party way of thinking, with a very, very slow collapse of the climate. But certain things can't be unseen, can they? At least not if you have done the research and made the graphs yourself. you know, then it's like, at least I don't doubt this graph because I made it. I'm using official numbers, official scientific computer model numbers and data from University of Washington. It's not made up. It's just you know, I made an annual volume out of it, and I've graphed it this way, and it looks bad. But I didn't make this graph because in order to make it look bad, you know, I also made this graph, and it doesn't look that bad. But the problem is just that you can't really choose between this graph and this graph, you know, because if you put ice cubes in a glass of water, it's the 3D ice cubes, the three-dimensional ice that has to melt, and that is melting, you know, progressively. It's not just the surface of it. So the true answer to when the ice cubes are melted to zero is found from looking at the volume, the thickness, the mass of ice. So I wish we could just choose this one, you know, like the Green Party. But okay, I'm hoping that John will come on this channel and have a conversation, and then maybe I'll publish that in a later YouTube video. All right. So thank you for listening, and please read this fantastic limerick from Benji.